Ani, bonsoir, good evening, and welcome to our January 18th, 2023 meeting of council. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to begin the meeting by acknowledging that we are in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Robinson-Huron Treaty area and wish to recognize the neighboring community of Dokis First Nation. While we meet today, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. And with that, I need a resolution to adopt the agenda, moved by Willie and Roger. And we are going to move 6.6 ahead of 6.1 so that we can accommodate Andrea, who has a council meeting with the St. Charles group. Okay. Any objections? Okay. All those in favor of the agenda? Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Tonight, we do have a delegation via Zoom, and it's David Betts from Brooker Link. That's our insurance company, who will address the reasons why they are raising our premiums for 2023. So David, I believe you're there. Just waiting for you to come on.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can't see you, but I can hear you.
Okay. You may be lucky that you can't see me, but
Okay.
I mean, I'm not sure what the problem is here. Oops. No, I've lost you guys.
Oh, no, you can't hear us?
I can hear you, but I can't see you now.
Oh. Technology, it's a wonderful thing. Oh, there you are.
There you are. Okay, I can't see you, but you can see me now.
Okay. All right, go ahead, David.
You're ready for me to begin? Okay, so my understanding was you wanted a short presentation on the coverage. I did hear a comment about us increasing the rates. Unfortunately, this is an ongoing problem industry-wide, but particularly affecting municipalities this time, and has for the last several years. I'm sure you're well aware of that. We have the reasons that there's claims issues across the board on the municipal side of the industry, increased costs to affect replacement cost and property, increasing values, those kind of things. There's just been a tough class of business for the insurers. Hence, as a group, you're paying more money for your insurance policies. I know that doesn't make you feel better. It's just unfortunately the way it is. Now, if there's any questions about that, I can respond to that. But if not, I'll just kind of go through the coverage you have in place at this time. Interrupt me at any time.
You can go through your presentation.
Okay. I'm just going to start off, and you've got a kind of a large package of information here. I'm going to start off on page 9 and just go through the summary of coverages there. So page 9 begins talking about liability insurance, of which you have several different kinds. The first type of liability insurance you have is municipal liability, which covers a response to bodily injury and property damage that may be affected to third parties. The limit on this page shows $15 million in coverage. However, your coverage has been increased on many sides of your liability up to a $50 million limit. We'll get there in a second. In addition to responding to bodily injury and property damage, they do have a couple coverages for in case there's a situation where nobody is negligent, but you want to pay medical payments or property damage to somebody that's been affected. We have some voluntary coverage for that. We respond to any kind of sewer related problems that might affect the municipality. There's some coverage for wrongful dismissal, legal expense coverage to defend you in the case of a wrongful dismissal claim. They have what they call forest firefighting expense. Again, if you're expensed by the ministry for a fire that might be caused by the municipality. One significant change this year in coverage is that abuse coverage has now been reduced to $2 million limit. It used to be included in the $15 million primary limit, but because of ongoing abuse claims, and many of them abuse or stem from long tail situations, which means they've happened from long ago and are just coming forward now. So the policy now still has abuse coverage, but it's limited to $2 million, and it covers abuse claims that are reported during the policy period, and not those that have happened before. So anything that comes up during the policy period. The next level of liability coverage you have is errors and omissions coverage. This, instead of covering bodily injury and property damage, responds to errors and omissions made by anybody that under the municipality, including councillors, that usually result in financial implications to third parties of the public. We also cover what we call non-owned auto liability coverage. So vehicles that you don't own, or municipality doesn't own, but may be used on behalf of the municipality. Could be a rental vehicle, could be an employee using their vehicle on their own, could be a councillor traveling to council meeting. Included in that, we do cover rental coverage for vehicles that you might have to rent up to a $250,000 limit of coverage. The last level of liability coverage is called environmental liability. So typical policies exclude pollution losses. This policy picks up a $5 million limit for environmental related losses that the public may come to you for bodily injury and property damage that they have suffered. On the next page is just the way that they've arrived at the $50 million limits that cover over top of your general liability, your errors and omissions coverage, and your non-owned liability and your auto liability for that matter. So they've done it in two layers. The first layer is a $15 million limit. The second layer is a $25 million limit. And this arrives at the $50 million limit you have to protect yourselves. On the following page, page 11, we get to the crime coverages. Crime coverages respond to various types of loss of money and securities. The first being an employee dishonesty related loss, so theft of money or property that an employee may perpetrate against the municipality. It also provides some coverage for loss inside or outside the premises. So this is like burglary or robbery coverage, up to a $200,000 limit. They provide audit expense coverage to help you arrive at the loss, to establish it. They cover counterfeit money orders and counterfeit paper currency that may be passed against municipality. They also cover forgery or alteration of checks coverage. And lastly, the crime coverage puts up computer or transfer fraud. So if somebody were to have access to your computer, a third party have access to your computer and move money from your bank account to their account, this would cover that kind of situation. It also includes what they call voice computer toll fraud. So somebody hacks into your phone system and runs up a series of long distance charges against you. The next coverage, and there's several layers to this coverage, is accident coverage. So the board members, the mayor and the councillors are covered while they serve on behalf of the board and they're on municipal business. There's a variety of different coverages here. The principal sum for accidental loss of life is $250,000. They double that limit for paralysis. There's some coverage for weekly indemnity for payroll, should you be laid up because of an accident or an accident per se. There's a whole list of coverages for injuries that you may sustain. You'll find them in the policy wording, and actually there's some listed in the back end of this coverage description. In addition to the accidental death and dismemberment, we have critical illness coverage. I believe 3 councillors currently are covered for this. If you're diagnosed with a critical illness, they have a one-time $10,000 payment for that. In addition to the accidental death and dismemberment the counselors have, we do also cover volunteers as well. They have lower sublimits, as you can see there. In addition to that, not on this policy, but separate, we have an accident and sickness policy for the volunteer firefighters that serve on behalf of the municipality. It's on a separate policy. The next coverage, which is fairly important to the council here themselves, is conflict of interest coverage. So this coverage will respond for legal defense, and it's on a reimbursement basis in the event there's an allegation of a conflict of, or contravention of the Conflict of Interest Act. And it responds in the event that there's actually no conflict of interest, that the conflict was inadvertent or truly an error in judgment. You certainly can't have an intentional conflict of interest, or if there's no interest or conflict at all. The next one coverage is legal expense coverage. This applies to everybody insured in the municipality, employees, counselors. It will defend in the event you have to pay legal costs to defend yourself for things like violation of provincial statutes, the criminal code. And again, this is a reimbursement figure. So instead of a liability coverage, it just covers legal expenses you may incur. Skipping to the next page, on page 12, we get to the property coverages. So later on in your exhibit, which you've probably gone through already, you have a whole list of the property that is covered under the policy individually and how they arrive at the blanket limit that we have here. So the property that we have insured is all insured on a replacement cost basis. So new for old, no depreciation. We cover under the blanket limit, so subject to any one loss, you can claim up to $25 million and change. The policy includes, there's a $5,000 deductible to any loss, and then it has a bunch of supplemental coverages that are included in that limit. Okay, and these don't add to the limit. Most of them would probably take place at the same time that you have a property claim, say a loss of a building or contents. The next page is an additional property coverage. So these limits are in addition to the ones we just listed. Again, that very broad form of coverage offered by the insurer. Again, $5,000 deductible applies to any one loss. Again, if you have any questions on this, just let me know. We could skip over the next page and they end with valuable papers coverage. Business interruption is also covered for the municipality. So they have two types of business interruption: rental values, so lost rental income from the use of your facilities. If some facility should be damaged and you can't rent it out and get that income. And they also have gross revenue loss if there's damage to your main municipal office to the tune of $600,000. They go on to talk about a couple situations where they define earthquake coverage and flood coverage here. They both apply to individual, or sorry, not the earthquake. The flood coverage applies to individual locations, each deductible. Earthquake is, which we don't have a lot of exposure to here. The earthquake is also covered under the policy. The next coverage is kind of a corollary to the property coverage. It's called equipment breakdown coverage. Used to be known as boiler and machinery coverage, but it's far broader than that. It covers the accidental breakdown of machinery or equipment. So typical examples could be electrical arcing losses, damage to food refrigeration systems or just refrigeration plants, air conditioning systems, breakdown of compressors, or explosion of a boiler or any kind of a vessel under compression. Again, it's a sudden and accidental occurrence, not a wear and tear policy. They have a high limit of coverage here because of the fact it used to be a boiler policy where a boiler could devastate a building if it were to blow up. Included in the boiler coverage is business interruption coverage, and they break this down by a couple locations. So the first is the arena on Christopher Street. They cover $1,000 of daily indemnity for a total of $90,000 at any one loss. And there's also the $600,000 business interruption, which follows form with a property coverage on the lead property policy. The next page is the automobile liability coverage. Again, it indicates here there's a $15 million limit of liability coverage, but the policy actually extends to $50 million for any auto loss. In addition to that, you have physical damage coverage, so collision or comp under an all perils format, subject to a $5,000 deductible. There is some coverage for vehicle rental up to $1,200 per occurrence. It's covered under what they call a blanket fleet endorsement. So we only adjust premium and only adjust the policy at the end of the term. So all vehicles are covered if they're added midterm. Then we get to the account premium at the bottom of this, which is what's obviously a major concern. It is up about 15% over last year. Part of that is by inflationary reasons on the property. But if you flip over to the next page, they do have a breakdown between last year and this year. You'll see a significant change to liability sections and the auto sections. Some of that is from another vehicle being added to the policy. Again, it's an unfortunate circumstances right now that all municipalities are having to face. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is at this time. Markets tend to be cyclical. So we're hopeful that in the future, they have started to moderate their increases. We're hoping that continues to see a little more benefit to you in that regard.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. That's
Any
basically.
questions? Oh, sorry. Did I cut
No,
you
I was
off?
gonna say, no, you didn't. You're dead on. I was just finishing that proposal. So.
Well, I figured when you got to the money part, I was loaded, right?
Right.
Any questions from members of council? Okay. Oh, Councillor Bob.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I know the answer, but David talked about volunteer firemen. I just want to make sure they fall completely under this policy. They don't need an extra policy or?
Actually, they don't follow under this policy that I just reviewed. They have their own separate policy that's specific to volunteer firefighters. So that's not listed on this policy. It's a separate coverage. And while I'm talking about that, I did neglect to mention one other coverage that isn't listed on this policy, but is quite important, and that's a cyber insurance policy that you folks have. So it covers, as you know, probably are aware of, there's more and more incidents where systems are being hacked, people are being ransomed and shut down their computer systems. There's social engineering where money is being misappropriated by third parties. And we have a policy in place for that as well now. There's a total limit of liability of $1 million on the liability side and $250,000 on the first party side, and first party being the cost to you folks in the event of a cyber event. And one of the key parts of the cyber policy is that it gives you immediate access to experts in the field of handling this. So you can be immediate, as soon as you cyber event is recognized, you reach out to these people and you'll get an immediate response from them to help mitigate your loss.
Does that answer your question? I did. Okay, Bob.
No, what I was getting at, like the volunteer firemen, through their association, do they have to go out and something, or it's an addendum to this?
It's an actual separate insurance policy. So just like you as a counselor have an accidental death and dismemberment policy, we have an accident policy and sickness policy specific to the volunteer firefighters. So it's separate from the program you have here, but it's in full effect for the volunteer firefighters whenever they're on duty. And it doesn't matter whether they're fighting a fire or perhaps they're attending a fire department event, maybe a public relations event. They're covered for that as well.
Does that answer?
Yes.
And it's paid by the municipality. Yes, this is a decision that was made by council.
Oh, is that
5
okay?
years ago, I think, to enhance the coverage for volunteer firefighters.
Okay, thank you. As a follow-up? say a fireman or a council member, do we have to be on board business? Or,
Yes, sir.
yes,
Yes,
say on a Monday afternoon, one of the councillors decides to go for a ride to check the garbage bins in Alvin on his own, just because he wants to, and something would happen. Is he covered, or do you qualify it as having to be going to a meeting, to a council function?
it doesn't necessarily have to be going to a council meeting, but it's intended to cover you while you're working in your capacity as a counselor. If you're doing stuff outside of your capacity of a counselor, I wouldn't guarantee there'd be coverage.
So for instance, if you're meeting with a resident and on your way to the resident's home, you get in an accident, you would be covered.
Yeah, in several ways probably, but yes, you would be
Yeah.
in that case. If you're traveling on business, if you attend meetings separately as a counselor, that's going to be covered as well.
Yes, like a meeting, but say just going, say tonight we talk about a road, I was gonna say Prevost Road, but we do have one, but any road. And we're discussing this road. And tomorrow I want to go for a ride and take a look at this sharp corner.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
and I'm going by myself without any knowledge to anyone. Am I covered?
Yeah, my argument would be that, yeah, you're working as a counselor inspecting the road, so you'd be covered for that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay. And Dean, Councillor Dean.
I'm kind of curious on rate increases and wondering if what we're seeing in rate increases with our municipality is directly attributable to any of our own policies or any of our own actions or losses, or are most of the rate increases just general in the industry?
I would say they're general to the industry. Your increase at 15%, I've seen increases on relatively claims-free accounts of over 20%.
Okay,
And, it's part of the increase on this particular policy this year, small part of it, is the change in the abuse liability. And that's been implemented in all the, on all the policies we serve. But largely, it's strictly a situation within the class of business right now. They're all seeing rate increases.
pretty general, about the same amount for most of.
Yeah, of course, you never know where you start, right? That's there's different levels of premium, but yes, I mean, they're pretty consistent.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, David. And hopefully next year when you come back around this time of year, it'll be in not the double digits.
Yeah, it'd be very nice. It'd be
be-
pleasurable to present that to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you
You're
very
more than
much.
welcome to stay on our exciting meeting if you wish, or you can go have a beer or whatever,
I
or a cup
probably
of
will,
coffee.
I'll probably have dinner.
Oh, there you go. Well,
Thank
Have
you
a
very
good
much,
dinner.
though. Have a good
thank
meeting.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, so we'll move on to reports. Oh, that's right, I forgot. We need a resolution to renew the municipal insurance program for the year 2023. Need a mover and seconder, Dean and Dave. All
It is-
those in favor?
I'll-
Oh, sorry, you'll
It
read
is-
it.
yeah. It is duly moved and seconded, be it resolved that council approves the municipal insurance program renewal with BrokerLink Inc. for a one-year term period from January 15th, 2023 to January 15, 2024 in the amount of $220,731 plus PST.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. I don't think we have a choice. All right, thank you. Let's move on to 6.6. Building and Planning Department, and Andrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks again for accommodating me and bringing me forward in the agenda. So I'm going to present two reports, starting with my fourth quarter report for 2022. I'll just go through a few highlights. The year was, we did make a little bit less, or have a bit less cost of construction in 2022 as opposed to the very high year we had in 2021, but still above numbers that we've seen in the past with 32 new home starts. Just in most cases, a bit of an overall drop in cost of construction, possibly because of the increase in interest rates near the end of the year. And also we were having issues with supply for different building materials. So that did seem to slow down the last half of 2022. Final spending and budget numbers will be coming forward in a separate report because, as most of you know, you operate as a shared service for building and bylaw. So the final numbers between the municipality of French River and St. Charles are being compiled and will be presented to council. The department was able to issue building permits within the prescribed times prescribed by the Ontario Building Code Act. And then there is some shared service reporting included at the end of the report showing the permit percentages and inspection percentage that French River carries compared to Killarney and St. Charles, and also with an estimated time spent based on permit type, which is a number of hours assigned to each type of permit that is also a part of our shared agreement and was agreed upon in the signing of in 2021. So you can see that number of permits, French River had 63% of the permits out of the 3 member municipalities, about 52% of inspections. But then when we take into account the hours spent on each type of permit, you're looking at more like 67%. So this number, the time spent based on permit type, directly gets put into the calculation for how much each member municipality spends. So we'll see how those numbers work out when I have final numbers to be able to report to council. So I'll open up to council for any questions.
Any questions with regards to the quarterly report? Seeing none, thank you. Sure.
Yes, thank you for your report. Andrea, I'm just asking you to look into your crystal ball and what does the coming summer look like?
Well, contractors continue to tell me that they're busy going into 2023. We are having discussions with some developers who are looking to develop larger sections of properties. It's very preliminary stages, but you'll be seeing some information coming to council. I don't see things slowing down back to normal rates from before COVID. I still see people investing in their properties. I do think the number of new home starts might start to slow down a bit, but overall the investment will still be there. In my crystal ball, that's what I see.
Thank you, Andrea. All right, let's move on then to Andrea, your second part, which is the site plan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So we have in front of council for their consideration a draft site plan control bylaw. So the need for a site plan control bylaw came before council in 2022 to remind everyone what this is and why we need it. The idea of a site plan control bylaw is it gives the building department and planning department a tool for an in-depth review of certain types of development, taking into account all of the municipality's applicable law from the zoning bylaw to any policies in place. It's meant to focus on commercial, industrial, larger residential type developments, just so that anything that increases development that could affect things like traffic on lakes, traffic on roads, sound, noise, noxious issues between neighbors, something that a plan can be put in place between the municipality and the developer so everyone knows what's allowed going forward. And then after that, what needs to be addressed if the development ever goes beyond a certain point. So this bylaw is brought forward to address that need. In 2022, we realized that the recommendation to bring forward this kind of bylaw was brought forward in 2012, but it kind of got lost in the shuffle. So this bylaw addresses that need. It's been reviewed and also takes into consideration more recent legislation from the province for building better homes faster. So at one point, one of our drafts asked for site plan control after buildings more than 4, I believe, any site plan that would have residential units more than 4. But now there's been loosening of that restriction by the province, asking for buildings that include units of more than 10. So anywhere that we could incorporate this new law, we have in this draft. And just for a little bit more review, just to point out some of the what I think are the most important pieces are how the authority is delegated. So the chief building official is being granted the authority to waive the requirements for site plan control. This was to give us a bit of flexibility. So if a commercial development was, say, putting in an accessory structure like a storage building, that wouldn't necessarily increase the use of a property, but maybe by the definition almost would look like it needed site plan control. To work within those gray areas, to stop having to go through a site plan control process, which might just add more time and issue to a fairly simple decision. We wanted to grant the ability to waive the requirement if we felt it was needed, with explanation, of course. The director of planning would be delegated to be the approval authority. So anyone going through site plan control would be working with our director of planning with the Sudbury's Planning Board. But then that any site plan control agreement would be presented to council and would be finally approved by council. So it's a document and a tool that we've needed for the last decade. We think that it's a good document that gives us enough flexibility, but we're looking forward to having the ability to be able to ask for site plan control. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions? So we're not passing this tonight. This is for councillors to take it back, reflect on it, and then if they have any suggestions or questions, they can forward them to you directly.
That was the intention, yes.
Okay. All right, any questions at this moment? Seeing none, thank you very much, Andrea,
Okay, thank you.
and you're free to go to St. Charles. All right, we'll go back to the agenda, 6.1. So we have a quarterly report from the clerk's department. So, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my report is included in the agenda. I don't have any highlights to present to council at this time. But if there's any questions from council, I'm willing to.
Any questions
entertain
on the
those.
clerk's quarterly report? Everybody okay? Okay. 6.1.2, your accessibility report post-election.
Yes, thank you. So this report is a report that is required under the Municipal Elections Act following the election, just to highlight and outline the actions that we're taking during the election to identify, remove, and prevent any barriers that affects electors or candidates with disabilities. So with the use of the internet and telephone, it answers a lot of those potential issues. With voting internet and telephone, it gives the opportunity to voters to vote in the comfort of their own home, using the any what's the term? Any any equipment that they're used to if they have a hearing impairment, for example. And the voting station at the municipal office is also available to assist any voters to vote. It's an accessible and barrier-free environment. Information and communication as well is always offered through our website, which you can enlarge with our website that is compliant with the guidelines. And that is about it that we've identified. through this election. It was a bit different than the vote by mail. So I think that this voting method was easier to meet those barriers or to avoid those barriers.
Excellent.
And
Any
yes.
questions with regards to the report? Seeing none. We have a resolution to approve the attendance of council at conferences being held in 2023. And I believe, Councillor Bob, you can't go to OGRA right now, so we'll take that off.
So we did take the list that was established at the last meeting, and we further confirmed with members to see for their availability. And so we do have a list. It's pretty much the same list, but I can go through it if you wish.
Everybody knows which conference they're going to? No, so,
Just in case.
yeah, just in case. So I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Dave, seconded by Bob.
So it duly moved and seconded, be it resolved that council approves the following members of council to attend the following conferences. So we have the Roma, OGRA, FUNUM, AMO, and AFMO conferences.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving right along, 6.1.4 compressed work week, and Mark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For those new councillors, back in December of 2021, council approved the pilot project for a compressed work week and extend the municipal office hours to 5 p.m. We've concluded that pilot project. It actually went a little longer than we originally anticipated as we ran into the elections in the fall. So you see before you my report to council and what our recommendation is. In short, starting in January of 2022, we divided our teams, of which 87.5% of the available employees decided to participate. They were divided into two teams, Monday to Thursdays, 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Tuesdays to Fridays, 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the individuals who didn't choose to participate remain on their regular schedules of 7.5 hours per day. The public were ensured the same levels of service during the pilot project will remain in place, and all the departments were required to ensure that the available staff was there to cover those extra additional hours. The benefit of this is extended the municipal hours about an extra half hour a day. We did see phone calls come in between that half hour, not as much walk-in traffic, but it depended on the time of the year and the time in availability. What we're going to do moving forward is we're going to track that a little bit more in detail and reevaluate it going forward. So during the pilot project, productivity levels remained at the same levels, if not higher. And I think council can attribute that there was no lack of productivity or projects on our projects and or council business during that time frame. And I'm proud of the staff of being able to do that. And the actual morale of the staff was heightened as well. We did list some potential pitfalls to watch out for. Those in terms of communications and concerns between staffs and departments were worked out and addressed. The one thing we did have sort of little difficulties and challenges was we did experience some logistical and coverage related challenges during periods of vacation. Sick time, working remotely. As you were aware, we were still in the COVID protocols. So we did have some of the employees work from home. There were some accommodations that needed to take place that we worked through and some compassionate leave to take care of. That being said, the cooperation between all of the people participating in the program was excellent. They went over and above their way to ensure that the service levels were kept up and that they were able to cover each other by switching their days off to accommodate each other. So I'm very proud of them to have done that. So in moving forward, we're recommending that this be brought into place permanently and then the extended hours be brought in permanently. But prior to preparing this report, I did give an opportunity of the staff to provide their experiences and preferences. 81% were satisfied with the compressed work week. 43% agreed that employee morale was heightened and improved. And 14% said there was some negativity between other departments. I can speak to that is when they say negativity with other departments is the administration were provided the opportunity of a compressed work week while other departments are in seasonal, so they had compressed work weeks halfway through the years due to operational concerns. And that was one of the comments. There's other comments that were shared that we will continue to work through with senior administration to address the comments and try to continue improving the compressed work week for everybody and to make it better for everyone. So in consideration of a condensed work week, we can certainly see some benefits coming to fruition. Enhanced staff retention. I'm a prime example, Madam Mayor. In terms of retention, and we haven't really addressed attraction yet because we haven't had the opportunity to replace any individual at this point in time within the staff. Employee satisfaction, improved employee morale, improved productivity, and enhanced work-life balance. That's a comment that was common between everybody who participated. The enjoyment of being of having a better work-life balance with the three days available in a row and rejuvenating themselves to come back to work. The bonus to the general public is our office hours are still extended to 5 p.m. And the one thing we found is there's a reduction in our carbon emissions of staff from traveling to work because there's 1 day a week that we're traveling less. You know, we just look at different positivities. So the one thing I'm happy to report on is since the implementation of the pilot project, no negative comments have I received from council and or the general public in terms of not having adequate service levels or not being having their concerns addressed or looked at this point in time, at least not directly to me. I haven't heard of anything that has come up. In terms of budget implications, there are no budget cost implications. When we did do the pilot project, we readjusted the vacations were based on days, sick days were based on days. Those were all transferred into hours to address the additional 9.5 hours that we were working a day. So should council consider our recommendation to move forward permanently, we're bringing forth some recommendations to our policies to match our permanent compressed work week scheduling, which would address amendments to the hours of work policy, the eating periods and breaks, annual vacations and sick leave. Just a note, during the pilot project, we reduced our hours of lunch to a half hour and we are only taking a 15-minute break in the mornings rather than two 15-minute breaks. So in conclusion, based on the pilot project to date and further reinforced by the feedback received from the staff, we're recommending that council approves the staff to provide the option of working a compressed work schedule, 4-day work week, and extend the municipal office hours on a permanent basis commencing on Monday, January 23rd. We're also recommending that council adopts the amendments of the municipality's employee policy manual relating to hours of work, eating periods and breaks, annual vacations and sick leave. And while we were addressing the employee policy manuals, there are 2 other policies that we were mandated by the legislation through the Employment Standards Act to bring into place as well, which are the right to disconnect policy and also the electronic monitoring policy that you see within your documentation. So that concludes my report, Madam Mayor. If there's any questions that you'd like me to address, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mark, and I'm happy that this has worked out and that the employees are enjoying the new work schedule alongside of being able to service our public an extra half hour per day. So it's a win-win for everyone. And anytime we can do something to show appreciation to our employees, I think that's a good way to go. So any questions for Mark? Good job. All right, so before you, then we have a resolution to amend the bylaw to reflect the changes to the work week.
So the first resolution is to approve the compressed work week
Right.
and the hours of operation. The second resolution is going to be to adopt the changes that need to be done to our employee policy manual to reflect the compressed work week.
Okay,
and
so
the
we need
hours.
to,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
you know, I have it here, but I wrote it too small, two resolutions, just,
That's okay.
okay, so let's do the first resolution, which is a compressed work week. So I need a mover and a seconder, Bob and Roger.
So it is duly moved and seconded. Be it resolved that council approves that staff be provided the option of working a compressed work week schedule as presented in the report dated January 18th and to extend municipal office hours of operation to 8 to 5 PM on a permanent basis commencing January 23rd, 2023.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Then the second motion is to amend the bylaw to the employees' policy manuals. I need a mover and a seconder, Dave and Dean.
Duly moved and seconded. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-05 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2016-19, a bylaw to adopt the employee policy manual be read first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Thank you. All those in favor? So the next resolution that's before you is to adopt the council remuneration and expense policy. And in it, we are adding a cell phone allowance of $20 per month for counselors. Are you going to speak to it? What, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? Anybody want to?
I can just mention also the annual remuneration is always adjusted every year. So the policy does state that remuneration of council shall be adjusted with the annual economic increase as equivalent to staff. So every year, even if we don't bring this policy to council, though that amount is always reflected or changed on an annual basis. So the addition is number 7. So cell phone allowance, members of council shall receive a monthly allowance of $20 to cover municipal business related costs of their personal cell phone.
Any questions? Seeing none, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Bob and Willie.
Duly moved and seconded, be resolved that bylaw 2023-04, being a bylaw to establish rates of remuneration and expenses incurred by the members of council be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
All those in favor? Thank you. We'll move on to finances. I believe Mark Fleury, our treasurer, is by Zoom. There he is. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For the fourth quarter report for activities, we started the budget process with the staff meetings in November and December 2022. We also started work with our consultants to automate the HR and payroll processes. Right now, it's a manual process, and we're changing to automate it to be more efficient and provide a better service to our employees and managers. And the expected HR module is expected to be operational in the first quarter of 2023. We also issued a request for proposal for asset management software in November 2022. The new software will centralize the inventory of capital assets and also will provide forecasting tools and mapping capabilities to improve decision-making and also long-term capital budgeting, and ensure compliance with the Ontario Regulation 588-17, the provincial regulation for asset management planning for municipal infrastructure. And we are analyzing the submissions as we speak, and we will present recommendations to council on next council meeting in February 1st. We also started the tax sale proceedings on one property that is delinquent, and we registered a tax arrears certificate on that property. The taxpayer, the owners of the property, have 1 year to pay the full cancellation price. Failing this, the property will be offered to auction or to a public tender process after the 1 year period, which will be in 2024. Any questions on activities?
Council, any questions? Nope, seeing none.
Okay, so also with the package for finance, there's the variance reports for operations and also for capital. So if we start for the highlights for the operating budget, we anticipate generating a small surplus for 2022. It's been a tight year. We've done well with the revenues, but also the expenses. There's fuel and also inflationary pressures. If we go for revenues, the prime rate increased at various times during 2022. Our bank account has generates interest based on prime, so the interest income has increased by about $79,000 compared to 2021. User fees from operations are above budget by $165,000, led by bylaw and building permit services, 47,000, fire services, 40,000, and transportation services, 25,000. For fire services, these relate to two major fires that we had this year. So there's a correlating expense that we have to pay M&R and the neighboring municipalities. So it's not free and clear money. We collect and we have to pay for contracted services with other fire departments. For revenues related to taxation, we issued supplemental invoices totaling $70,000. Those are buildings. We're in growth phase, so in the last couple of years, our permits are being closed, and we can issue supplemental invoices for the buildings that were completed during the year. Interest on taxes is a little lower than budgeted because the arrears are lower. Basically, collection efforts are, which is a good thing, leads to less arrears, so less interest on taxes. For capital grants, the ICIP or the Alban Community Center, the ICIP funding we received for the project, there's a big portion that will be deferred to next year. The project has been delayed due to COVID related activities like vaccination centers. Also, the amounts received for gas tax, OCIF, and NORDS funding. The amounts received was $582,000 for the year. Will be deferred to 2023 to help finance the rehabilitation of the multi-guérin box culvert, which is planned next year. For expenses, salaries are in line. A little increase because of some overtime, but basically in line. No surprise, fuel, furnace oil, and utilities are continuing to have an impact on the budget. Fuel is up 62% or 43% over last year. And utilities also is up $62,000 or 29% over last year. For other expenses, we're also experiencing inflationary pressures, fuel surcharges and general increases. Also in the fourth quarter, there was a major repair for the grader of about $43,000 it was a midlife rehabilitation. It's 10 years old, and there was some major repairs that had to be done to extend or to at least be able to do the 20 years expected life. Any questions for the operating budget?
Any questions, anyone?
No.
Seeing none?
For the capital budget, just real quick, there's a lot of items that have been deferred to next year. And that's why the budget expenses are lower than budget.
All right. Any questions for our treasurer? Seeing none?
Congratulations.
Yes, good work, Mark.
Thank you.
I like the fact that there's no red. All right, let's move on to Public Works and Environmental Services. So we have a resolution before you to amend the fees and related charges, and there's a report in there, and Kevin's going to present that.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Just pull it up. The reason for the suggested changes in Schedule E for the tipping fees is just to clear some confusion up at the landfill site, referencing loads and mixed material that are coming in. And also we have an increased proposal for $5 for refrigerant units. We went from 0 a couple of years ago, and we're just slowly trying to get it up to what it's actually costing us here at the municipality. So these are the only changes we're asking for the tipping fees. And we're just trying to straighten it out so it's less confusing for public coming in.
Any questions? I have one question. What's white goods?
Oh, that would just be your stoves and dryers and stuff like that.
Oh, stove dryers. Oh, okay.
Just metal.
I was trying to figure that out and I thought, what is that? And we don't charge for that.
No, that is free.
Okay, thank you. Need a mover and a seconder to approve the new rates. Dave and Willie.
Duly moved and seconded to be resolved that bylaw 2023-03 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2021-22, a bylaw to set fees and related charges set out by the municipality of French River be read at first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. We'll move on to the 6.3.2 quarterly report from the Environmental Services, and that is Kevin.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Tonight, I'm just going to go through the key highlights of this quarter and some quarterly statistics. So for quarter number 4, we had our fall monitoring program that we are legislated to do every year. We also had our landfill topo survey completed, as well as our wood grinding. Our wood pile was all cleaned up in our 4th quarter. I'd like to talk about waste diversion because that seems to be a big topic here. So I'd just like to point out that we're sticking at the 40% seems to be always of contaminated waste that comes from our bins, from our transfer stations. But I would also like to point out that out of the 880 participants in our pilot program right now, we only have a 34% participation rate. But if you look at our numbers that are coming from that are actually going, we actually have 26 tons. And as a total from everyone else in the municipality, we have 116 tons. So 34% of 880 houses are producing that much, just getting diverted out of our landfill. So it's pretty impressive. So I just thought that was should be highlighted here. That's all I got. Thank you.
Any questions? I just have a comment. So under time removing bulk waste at transfer sites in hours, in 2021, there was 457. In 2022, it's down to 96.5. Like that's major, isn't it?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, for sure. It is due to bylaw presence. The
I know.
fencing at the Noelville site has been a lot easier for bylaw to control the 2 major sites. So it doesn't, like, we have one person going back and forth, so it's helped a lot. And obviously the camera system at Noelville, even when it's open, we still have eyes on it. So
Yes.
it's helped a lot.
Yes, and I see the presence of our bylaw officer at the Albin one as well. And I think that's made a big difference.
Yes, for sure.
And I'm fully aware of the letters that were sent out on January 2nd by the calls that I'm getting. So obviously it's working.
Yes.
Good. Any other comments for Kevin? Seeing none. Thank you, Kevin. Now, we do have a quarterly report in your package from Public Works, but unfortunately, Bob can't be here today. So if you have any questions or comments, you can make your comments now if you wish. But you can contact Bob directly if you wish. Okay. And now we'll move on to 6.3.4. So it's a resolution to authorize staff to enter into a sewage system user agreement with contractors. And we have a report in there as well as we do have the agreement in there. So Kevin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm gonna go through the whole thing, kind of just to give everybody a background for anybody who doesn't know. The municipality currently utilizes Aqua for consultation operational service for the sanitary collection and treatment system. Annually, Aqua reports to the municipality on legislative compliance and preventative strategies to mitigate environmental and operational challenges. The municipality had a complete review of the Noelville sanitary collection and treatment system infrastructure, which was completed by EXP Engineering. Together, EXP and Aqua provided the municipality with a comprehensive view of the state of the infrastructure and highlighted the following three primary concerns. First, the Noelville sanitary system relies on one aging diesel generator and transfer switch to provide emergency backup power to both sewage pumping stations. Two, the Noelville Lagoon accepts septage at the lagoon from private contractors. Currently, there is a limited ability to monitor the quantity and quality of accepted septage. Three, the Noelville Lagoon exceeded its rated daily capacity in 13 months over the last 4 years. So during the review of annual volume quantities of domestic waste, which is received at the municipal lagoon, it was found that 40% of the received waste had been generated from households outside of our municipality. At the September 28th, 22 EAC committee, staff presented a sewage system user agreement, which is attached, which would prevent contractors from disposing of domestic waste generated outside of our municipality into the sanitary collection and treatment system by implementing monitoring controls on accepted volumes and ensuring that appropriate fees are associated with the use of the infrastructure. The municipality can plan for improvements and have available capability or capacity for future residential development within the municipality. I don't know if Mark, you'd like to speak towards this in any other way?
If you look through the agreement, you'll see we also adjusted the rates to meters cube based on the numbers that we have in the traditional numbers of what we're accepting from municipal residents or households. We could see generating between $24,000 to $30,000 extra a year. And the reason I state that, the importance of that is part of the assessment on the capacities that we've generated with Aqua. This is part one of trying to create additional capacity in our lagoons. Part two is the challenge in 2023 is coming up with a solution to clean the lagoons to create additional capacity. And then there's also a recommendation to look at the potential of re-rating our lagoons to be able to address our future growing needs, which we'll talk about more in the budget process.
Any questions? So the contractors, do they know that's coming up? That they won't be able to jump into our,
Through you, Madam Mayor, the contractors we've spoken with them a little
Okay.
bit because we've had issues in the past, so they know that something's coming up.
okay. Sorry, I didn't see you, Bob.
Just to be clear in my mind, with this now, we will not be accepting from outside our municipality.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, that is correct. We're no more outside of our municipality will be
Okay,
accepted.
which is a good thing. Thank you.
Other comments? Well, I guess the contractors may not be too pleased with that, but we got to make room for our own growth here. And that's what's important. All right, so we do have to approve, we have to approve the sewage system user agreements. So before you have the agreement. I need a mover and a seconder. Willie, and seconded by Dean.
It is duly moved and seconded, whereas at their meeting held September 28th, 2022, the Environmental Advisory Committee reviewed a draft sewer user agreement and adopted a recommendation for council's consideration. Therefore, be it resolved that council authorizes the manager of environmental services and the clerk to enter into sewage system user agreements with contractors to allow the disposal of domestic sewage and wastewater in the Nuevo sewage system. So this allows staff to enter into these agreements without coming to council every time. But
That's
we
good.
will be reporting to council once we do have agreements in place.
And how many do we have currently? You know,
Through you, Madam Chair. We only have one that is allowed right now.
one that's allowed.
So
Okay.
this will allow any other companies that who could possibly.
Oh,
use
okay.
it. So
Interesting. Okay.
They can find.
Dean, can you press?
The contractor can find other places to dump other than here. So if he's picking up stuff south of the river and Perry Sound District and I know that's what he's been doing and out of the municipality to the east or west, he can find locations to take that stuff. It's just going to cost people more.
Those are people from outside our municipality, so. All right, all those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. All right, let's move on to Recreation and Community Services. There's a quarterly report by Parks and Rec, but again, Bob is not here. The information is all there. If you do have questions, please feel free to contact Bob, send an email to Bob. However, at 6.4.2, we do have a resolution to approve the grants and subsidy application from the French River Curling Club Spring Curling League, and that's something that usually is a repeater request that comes up every year, except in COVID years.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I need a mover and a seconder. Dave and Willie.
It is duly moved and seconded. Resolved that council approves the grant and subsidy application for a rebate from the hall rental fee at the Nuevo Community Center received from the French River Curling Club Spring Curling League for a hall rental fee rebate for their curling league banquet and awards evening on March 5th.
Thank you. Any questions? I forgot to ask if there was any questions. Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Good. All right, so we do have, oh, Kevin, you're not done yet. Jeez. All right, so Kevin, you're back on again with your quarterly report for bylaw services.
thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to,
Mm-hmm.
this quarter, we did see the first penalties issued under our administrative monetary penalty system. It's a mouthful, AMPS for short form. It was passed earlier this year. This begun after the finalization of the framework required to process penalties that have been issued. While minor issues with the payment system occurred early on, these were quickly addressed and fixed by the admin staff. Overall, AMPS has already proven itself to be easy, quick, and an efficient method of enforcing bylaws. With the municipality seeing the results of these issued penalties in weeks, as opposed to months or years in the case of the POA charges. Public reaction to being penalized in our AMPS also has been much more positive compared to the POA court system. Several people penalized under AMPS bylaw were able to calmly express their understanding of the penalty to municipal staff, including the issue officer, resulting in a more relaxed and educational interaction. Because now they come to us at the office and they're dealing here instead of calling a number to deal with justice in North Bay. So it has been working a lot better and we're seeing it here. So for our quarterly report for the 4th, I'm just going to go through the final. We've had In total, bylaw complaints for this year, 54. We've issued 65 POH charges. And we have 7, because we just started AMPS notices. So for 2022, we have, for the dog tags sold in Q4 was 15 and 1 parking ticket issued. So. Any questions?
Questions? Good. I'm glad it's working. And are
Yeah.
people actually paying their fines? Mostly,
Yeah,
except
pretty
for.
much, yes, for sure. It's working out good. It's just an easier system. I find, and the public is reacting much better to it because they can immediately get a call from, like, they can call here and speak, and then they're talking to staff members instead of a court system. So
We did appoint someone to be the judge on the appeals on this now? We have that in place? Good, good. And by the way, I had one person tell me they like the system a lot better than waiting months and months to have to go to North Bay.
Somebody got charged. All right, thank you, Kevin. Let me see if I see your name down for any other reports. I think you're done. All right. I just lost the other half of my. Sorry, I just misplaced the rest of my agenda. Oh, fire department. Next report is the fire department. Arak, I see you are on Zoom.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll go through the key highlights for the fire department for the Q4. Fire department responded to 11 incidents for the Q4, finishing the year with 79 in total, meaning this is our biggest years so far. For training, we did the 8 training session for the Q4 for a total of 36 for the year. Agreements, we had a mutual aid activation with St. Charles Fire Department on a structure fire. Recruitment, we had 1 new firefighter at station 2. Sorry. Update on fire department, our new mini pumper was put in service in December, which is actually last week was put in full gear on a structure fire. We also had fire prevention week, which our fire prevention officer, Kevin, attended all 3 schools and distributed fire safety materials to all the students. Any questions?
Any questions for our fire chief? Seeing that, yes, Bob.
Yes, thank you, Arak. Just for information, where do we stand on numbers of volunteer firemen in station 1, station 2?
So far, we are about 13 in station 1 and about 16 at station 2.
Okay, thank you.
Just Rock wanted to for you to express our gratitude to the firefighters this week and last week. I know it's been a hectic start of the year for our firefighters with 2 major fires and that horrible accident the other day. So on behalf of council, can you please extend our thanks for the great work that they do for us?
I will. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council.
All right. I found my agenda. Okay, so the reports are all done because Andrea did hers. So we do have a piece of correspondence and we have a resolution to declare the Noelville Family Hockey Tournament being held February 17th to the 19th as a community event of municipal significance. So I need a mover and a seconder, moved by Bob and Dave.
It is duly moved and seconded. Be resolved that council declares the Nuevo Family Hockey Tournament being held February 17th to 19th as a community event of municipal significance.
All those in favor? Thank you. Number 8, under consent agenda, I need a resolution to adopt the items contained in the consent agenda, moved by Dean and Willie.
Duly moved and seconded. Be resolved that council approves the items of the consent agenda under section 8.1 and 8.4 and receives the items under section 8.3.
All those in favor? Thank you. There are no notices of motion, Madam Clerk. And we'll do announcements and inquiries, and we'll start with Dave. We'll start on this side for a change.
I don't really have anything to announce. Thank you.
Okay, whew, glad it wasn't me. Dean, anything to announce?
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
Willie,
I have nothing to announce at this time.
Bob?
I'd just like to say a big thank you to all the volunteers that worked for our, I know it's a long time ago, our Christmas parade and our children's Christmas party. I'd just like to say a big thank you on behalf of myself and council. And I would just like to announce that our next meeting of February 1st, I will be absent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know. Roger?
No, nothing for me. Thank you.
Okay. I actually don't have anything, so. Am I okay? There's some bad. I know. Yes, the food bank is tomorrow, so we're very busy there. Okay, so now we move on to the closed session, and tonight we do, oh, sorry, I forgot to ask staff, any announcement? Mark?
Just a reminder that the staff has been hard at work at the budget in our first meeting with council tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock.
Correct.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and we even invite the members of the public. Laureen, if you had any announcement or questions, or you're good? Well, it's nice to have you here. It's always nice to have members of the public here. And you can bring the rest of the gang from the apartments next time. All right, so we do have a closed session, so I need a resolution to resolve into a closed session. Moved by Roger, seconded by Dave. All in favor?
No, just a second.
Oh,
I'm gonna read.
oh, you need to read it. Right, okay.
Duly moved and seconded. Be resolved that the meeting be closed as authorized in the municipal act pursuant to section 239(2)B. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, with respect to the selection of public members to be appointed to the advisory committees and boards, and a complaint human resources matter.
All right, again, all those in favor? Thank you. So we'll resolve into the boardroom. We're on. Okay, I need a resolution to reconvene into an open session, moved by Willie, seconded by Dave. All those in favor? Oh, do you want to read it? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. Okay. I have a resolution that's emanating from the closed session, and that's to appoint members of the public to our library board. So I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Bob and Roger.
Is duly moved and seconded. Be resolved that council appoints the following members of the public to the French River Public Library Board: Megan Rowan, Anda Massimiliano, Rosemary Heddle, Paulette Buffard, and Suzanne Bizayo.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Should be noted that emanating from the closed session is that we will extend the deadline for the other 4 advisory committees for an additional 2 weeks to give a chance for the members of public to apply for committees. And I need a resolution to adopt the confirmation bylaw by Dean and Dave. All those in favor? Thank you. And finally, I need a resolution to adjourn. Dean and Bob. All those in favor? Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody. And don't forget tomorrow.